"Save me from the tracks. I'll be your wife and do anything you want," the Comanche said to the rancher. Daniel was used to the quiet life of the ranch. Every morning he would wake before the sun, take care of the livestock, check the fences, and make sure everything was in order. His ranch was far from the nearest town, and the roads were mostly dusty paths winding through open fields and hills. Life here was peaceful, but sometimes it could be lonely. Daniel was a kind man, respected by the few neighbors who lived miles away. He had learned to be patient, to enjoy small moments of beauty like the soft glow of sunrise on the horizon, or the gentle sound of the wind moving through the trees. That morning, Daniel decided to take a walk along a path near the railroad tracks that ran close to his land. It was a quiet place, far enough from the town that he could hear his own thoughts. As he walked, he thought about the chores he had left for the day and the upcoming winter preparations. His boots crunched against the gravel, and he could hear the faint whistle of a train in the distance. The sound made him glance up at the tracks, half expecting the train to pass quickly, as it always did. Suddenly, a piercing scream shattered the calm. Daniel froze, his heart racing. The scream came from the direction of the tracks, and it was full of fear, desperation, and urgency. Without thinking, he started running toward the sound, his legs pumping as fast as they could. The closer he got, the more he realized how serious the situation was. A young woman was lying on the tracks, her hands and feet tangled in something that looked like a rope or a strap. She was struggling, panicking, and the train whistle was growing louder. Daniel's heart pounded as he reached her. He could see the train approaching, its loud roar echoing in the valley. Without hesitation, he grabbed the woman under her arms and lifted her off the tracks. She screamed again, but this time it was more of relief than fear. Daniel dropped to his knees, holding her tight as the train thundered past just inches away from where she had been moments before. When the train disappeared around the bend, Daniel finally stood up and looked at the woman. She was shaking violently, tears streaming down her face. Her dark hair was tangled and her clothes were dusty and torn from the struggle. She looked at Daniel with wide, fearful eyes, and her voice trembled as she spoke. "Please, please save me," she said. "I'll do anything you want. I'll be your wife. I'll do anything if you save me." Daniel blinked, stunned by her words. He had expected gratitude, perhaps a simple thank you, but not this. The woman's words were desperate, filled with fear, but also with something he couldn't quite understand, an intense hope that he would help her no matter what. He stepped back slightly, trying to process what she had just said. "Wait," he said gently, keeping his hands raised so she wouldn't be afraid. "Take a deep breath. You're safe now. The train is gone." The woman clung to him for a moment longer, then slowly released her grip. Her voice was quieter now, trembling with exhaustion and relief. I didn't know if anyone would help me. I didn't want to die." Daniel helped her to her feet, brushing the dust from her clothes. She looked young, perhaps in her late teens or early 20s. There was a strength in her eyes even though she was scared, and Daniel felt a mixture of concern and curiosity. "Who are you? Where are you from?" he asked. "My name is Yana," she said. I ran away from my home. I didn't have anywhere to go. I didn't know what else to do." Daniel could see that she was telling the truth. There was something in her expression that showed both fear and honesty. He knew that she had been through something difficult, something that forced her to risk her life on the railroad tracks. And yet there was also bravery in her actions. She hadn't waited for someone else to save her. She had struggled and fought until help arrived. "Okay, Ayana," Daniel said softly. "You're safe now. Let's get you somewhere you can rest. Can you walk?" Yana nodded, though her legs were shaking. Daniel offered his arm, and she leaned on him as they walked toward his ranch. The sun was climbing higher in the sky, and the warmth of the morning helped ease some of the tension. They walked in silence for a few minutes, broken only by the sound of their footsteps on the gravel path. As they reached the ranch, Daniel led her to a small wooden porch. "You can sit here for a while. I'll get you some water and food," he said. Yana sank onto the porch steps, still trembling, and Daniel went inside to fetch a cup of water. When he returned, she drank it quickly, her hands shaking as she held the cup. Daniel sat beside her, careful not to crowd her. "Yana, you don't have to do anything for me. You were in danger and I helped because it was the right thing to do. You don't owe me anything." She looked at him, her eyes filled with gratitude but also a strange mix of relief and confusion. I didn't know if anyone would care," she admitted. "Back home, I wasn't safe. I thought no one would help me. That's why I said that." Daniel nodded slowly. He could understand that she had come from a world very different from his own. He knew there were dangers she faced that he could never fully imagine. And yet he also saw the strength in her, how she had risked everything to survive. He admired that courage, even if it made him worry for her. For the next few hours, Daniel offered her food, water, and a place to rest. They talked carefully, trying to understand each other. Yana told small parts of her story, enough for Daniel to realize she had escaped something dangerous, but not enough to endanger her by revealing everything. Daniel shared simple stories about life on the ranch, the animals, the land, and the peaceful routines that filled his days. Slowly, Ayana began to relax. The tension in her shoulders eased, and her breathing became more even. As evening approached, Daniel built a small fire outside. The sky turned orange and pink, and the ranch was bathed in warm light. Ayana sat near the fire, watching the flames dance. She was still shaken, but there was a hint of hope in her eyes now. Daniel knew that tomorrow would bring challenges, questions about where she would go next, how they could navigate the dangers she had escaped. But for tonight, she was safe. Daniel sat quietly beside her, thinking about the events of the day. He had saved a life, but in doing so, he had stepped into a story much larger than his own. He wondered how Ayana's life had led her to this point, and how her presence might change his quiet ranch forever. Yana finally spoke, her voice soft. "Thank you for saving me." I don't know what I would have done," Daniel smiled gently. "You don't have to thank me, just rest. That's enough for now." For the first time since the terrifying moments on the railroad tracks, Ayana felt a sense of safety. And for Daniel, the quiet life of the ranch had just become a little more complicated, a little more unpredictable, but in a way that promised new stories, new challenges, and perhaps new beginnings. As the fire crackled and the night settled over the ranch, both Daniel and Ayana sat quietly, each lost in their thoughts. They didn't know what the future held, but in that moment they knew one thing for certain. Life could change in an instant. And sometimes, a single act of courage could save a life, and perhaps change it forever. The next morning, Daniel woke to the soft light of dawn streaming through the windows of his small ranch house. The smell of fresh earth and morning dew filled the air. He could hear the gentle lowing of the cattle in the distance and the chirping of birds in the trees. The quiet comfort of the ranch was familiar to him, but now it felt different. Yana was still there, sleeping on a blanket in the corner of the room. He watched her for a moment, noticing the way her chest rose and fell with each breath. She looked peaceful, as if the events of yesterday were only a bad dream she could finally forget. Daniel quietly went outside to check on the animals. As he walked through the fields, his mind was busy with thoughts about Ayana. He wondered about her life before she had appeared on the tracks, about her family and the challenges she had faced. He knew that she had trusted him in a way that few people ever did, and he felt a responsibility to make sure she remained safe. It was strange for him to feel so connected to someone he had just met, but the intensity of yesterday's events had created a bond neither of them could ignore. By mid-morning, Ayana had woken. She sat on the porch steps, rubbing her eyes and trying to shake off the lingering fear from the previous day. Daniel approached with a bowl of warm porridge and a cup of fresh water. "Good morning," he said softly. Eat something. You need strength." Yana nodded and took the bowl. She looked at Daniel with a mixture of gratitude and embarrassment. I'm sorry," she said quietly, "for yesterday. I didn't mean to speak like that. I was scared." Daniel smiled gently. "There's no need to apologize. Anyone in your situation would have said something similar. You were frightened, and that's natural. The important thing is that you're safe now." They ate together in silence for a while, the sun climbing higher in the sky. After a few bites, Ayana began to talk more freely. She shared small details about her life, careful not to reveal anything that might put her in danger. She spoke about her childhood, growing up among her people, learning their traditions, and the importance of family and community. Daniel listened carefully, fascinated by her stories. He realized how different her life had been from his own, yet how many of the lessons she had learned were universal, lessons about courage, resilience, and the importance of kindness. As they talked, Daniel began to understand why Ayana had been so desperate yesterday. She had faced dangers that he could scarcely imagine, situations that would have frightened anyone. But he also saw her strength. She had risked everything to escape and to survive. That courage made him respect her even more. By late morning, Daniel suggested they go outside to check on the fences and the animals. Ayana hesitated at first, unsure if she could help, but Daniel encouraged her gently. "You don't have to do anything complicated. Just watch and learn. It's part of ranch life, and it will keep your mind busy." Yana followed him into the fields. The sun was warm on their backs, and the breeze carried the fresh scent of grass and earth. Daniel showed her how to inspect the fences for breaks or weak spots, how to feed the animals, and how to move quietly so as not to startle them. At first, she was clumsy, unsure of herself, but Daniel was patient. He praised her for small successes, and slowly she began to gain confidence. As the day went on, they discovered that the ranch required more work than Daniel had realized. Some of the cattle had wandered too close to the riverbank, and a few fences were badly damaged from a recent storm. Daniel and Ayana worked together to round up the animals and repair the fences. It was hard work, and the sun beat down on them relentlessly, but they both found a sense of satisfaction in the tasks. There was something grounding about physical labor, something that made the world feel simple and manageable, even in the midst of uncertainty. During a break in the work, Ayana shared more about her culture. She taught Daniel a few words in her language, showed him how to identify certain plants that could be used for food or medicine, and explained some of the traditions of her people. Daniel listened with genuine interest, fascinated by the knowledge she carried. He realized that despite the differences in their upbringing, there was much they could learn from each other. As the afternoon sun began to lower, Daniel suggested they take a short walk to the creek near the ranch. The water was clear and cool, and the sound of it flowing over the rocks was soothing. Yana dipped her hands into the water, feeling the chill against her skin, and for the first time in days, she allowed herself to relax completely. Daniel watched her, noticing how the tension had left her shoulders and how her eyes now held a spark of curiosity instead of fear. While sitting on the rocks by the creek, Ayana opened up about the challenges she had faced while running away. She spoke cautiously, careful not to reveal too much, but enough to give Daniel a sense of the dangers she had escaped. Daniel listened, horrified at some of the hardships she had endured, but also impressed by her bravery. She had survived when many would have given up, and that resilience was something he could not help but admire. As the evening approached, they returned to the ranch. Daniel built a small fire outside, and they sat together, sharing a simple meal of bread and vegetables. The firelight danced across their faces, creating a warm and comforting atmosphere. Yana seemed more relaxed than she had the day before, and Daniel felt a sense of relief knowing she was beginning to feel safe in this new environment. Over the next few days, a routine began to form. Gianna helped Daniel with the chores, learning quickly and proving herself capable. She discovered a love for the animals, particularly the horses, and Daniel was impressed by how naturally she adapted to ranch life. In turn, Daniel continued to learn from Ayanna, gaining a deeper understanding of her culture and the wisdom she carried. Despite the progress, Daniel knew they could not ignore the outside world. There were neighbors, townspeople, and authorities who might question why a young woman was staying with him. He also knew that Ayanna's past could catch up with her at any moment. But for now, they focused on the present, on building trust and understanding between them. One evening, as they sat by the fire, Ayanna turned to Daniel with a hesitant expression. "I don't want to be a burden," she said softly. "I know I came to you in a strange way, and I don't want to cause trouble." Daniel shook his head firmly. "You're not a burden. You came here because you needed help, and I helped because it was the right thing to do. You don't owe me anything, and you haven't caused any trouble. You've shown courage, and that's something to be proud of." Gianna smiled faintly, a mixture of gratitude and relief in her eyes. "Thank you for believing me, for helping me. I don't know what I would have done if you hadn't been there." Daniel nodded, feeling the weight of her words. He knew that saving her life had changed both of them. They had been brought together by a single, terrifying moment, and now that moment was the beginning of a new chapter for both. As the night grew darker, they sat in comfortable silence, listening to the sounds of the ranch, the soft rustling of the wind in the trees, the distant lowing of the cattle, and the crackling of the fire. Daniel realized that despite the challenges ahead, there was hope. There was a chance to create something meaningful, a chance to build trust, understanding, and perhaps even friendship, if not more. For Ayanna, the fear that had consumed her moments before the train passed was beginning to fade. She felt a sense of safety she had not known for a long time. She realized that Daniel's help was not just a rescue, it was an opportunity to start over, to learn, and to grow. She did not know what the future held, but for the first time, she allowed herself to hope. As they finally went inside to rest, both Daniel and Ayanna carried a quiet sense of anticipation. Life on the ranch was not easy, and the world outside was full of uncertainties. But together, they had taken the first steps toward something new, something that could change their lives forever. And though neither of them knew exactly what lay ahead, they knew that the bond formed in those first hours of fear and courage would guide them through the days to come. The days passed slowly on Daniel's ranch, but each day brought new lessons and small victories. Gianna was learning quickly. She could now feed the cattle without spilling the grain, guide the horses into the barn without startling them, and even mend small tears in the fences with careful hands. Daniel watched her quietly, noticing how her confidence had grown. The fear and desperation that had once dominated her expression had given way to a quiet determination. She was adapting, not just to the physical work of the ranch, but to a new way of life altogether. Daniel had never imagined that he would be teaching someone from a completely different world about ranch life, but he found joy in seeing Ayanna learn. There was something in her eyes, a curiosity, a spark of intelligence, that reminded him why it was important to be patient and kind. He also realized that he was learning from her. She had a deep understanding of the land, the plants, and the animals, passed down from her people for generations. She taught him which herbs could soothe a horse's sore legs, which plants were safe to eat, and how to read signs in nature that he had never noticed before. Their lessons were mutual, and both were growing together in ways neither had expected. One morning, Daniel decided to take Ayanna to the hills beyond the ranch. "I want you to see the land from above," he said. "It will help you understand why the ranch is important, and it will give you a chance to enjoy the view." The climb was gentle but steady. Ayanna's feet moved carefully over the uneven ground, and Daniel offered a steady hand when she needed it. When they reached the top, the view took her breath away. Rolling hills stretched for miles, dotted with clusters of trees, patches of wildflowers, and the glimmering lines of streams cutting through the earth. The ranch looked small from this height, a mere dot in the vastness of the landscape. "It's beautiful," Yana whispered, her eyes wide. "I have never seen land like this. Where I come from, it is different, but this, it is wonderful." Daniel smiled. "I'm glad you like it. This land is harsh at times, but it has its own kind of beauty, and it takes care of those who respect it." They sat together for a long while, letting the wind brush against their faces and listening to the quiet sounds of nature. For the first time since arriving at the ranch, Ayana allowed herself to feel a sense of peace that was not clouded by fear. She thought about the danger she had escaped and the life she had left behind. The memory of the tracks and the approaching train still haunted her, but it was tempered now by the knowledge that she had survived, that she had someone to trust, and that there was hope for the future. As they began the descent back to the ranch, Ayana asked Daniel about his life. "Do you ever feel lonely out here?" she asked, her voice soft. "I mean, living so far from everyone else." Daniel paused, thinking. "Sometimes," he admitted. "Life on the ranch can be quiet, and there are days when it feels very lonely. But there is also freedom here. You can hear the wind, watch the sun rise, and live in a way that connects you to the land. Loneliness is just a part of it, and sometimes it helps you appreciate the people you do meet even more." Yana nodded thoughtfully. "I think I understand," she said. "I have known loneliness too. I have had to be alone for long stretches, and it can be frightening. But when someone is kind, when someone helps you, it changes everything." Daniel glanced at her, realizing how much courage she had shown. "You are stronger than you know," he said. "You survived when most people would have given up. That strength will help you here too." Back at the ranch, life continued with its daily routines, but not without challenges. One afternoon, a small group of neighbors rode by on horseback. They had heard rumors about a Comanche woman staying at Daniel's ranch, and curiosity, and perhaps suspicion, brought them to see for themselves. Ayana watched from behind Daniel, unsure of how she would be received. The neighbors dismounted and approached cautiously, their eyes wide with a mixture of surprise and wariness. Daniel stepped forward, introducing Ayana with calm confidence. "This is Ayana," he said. "She is staying here safely. She is learning about life on the ranch and helping with the work." The neighbors exchanged glances, their expressions a mixture of curiosity and disbelief. One of them, an older man named Mr. Thompson, frowned slightly. "It is unusual, Daniel," he said. "I've never seen anyone like her here. Are you sure it's safe?" Daniel nodded firmly. "She is safe, and so is everyone here. Ayana is learning, and she has shown nothing but respect and courage. I trust her, and you should too." Ayana felt a mix of fear and pride. She had never been in a situation like this, surrounded by people who were not familiar with her culture. Yet, Daniel's words gave her confidence. She stood a little taller, meeting the neighbors' eyes, showing them that she was not someone to be feared but a person with her own strength and dignity. After the neighbors left, Ayana turned to Daniel. "Thank you," she said quietly, "for speaking for me." "I was afraid. I did not know how they would react." Daniel smiled. "You didn't need to be afraid. You are capable of handling more than you think, and you have every right to be here. Remember that." Days turned into weeks, and Ayana continued to adapt to life on the ranch. She began to enjoy the simple pleasures of the work, feeding the animals, gathering eggs, tending to the small garden that Daniel had started for fresh vegetables. She learned to ride horses with confidence, sometimes racing Daniel across the open fields just for fun. The bond between them grew stronger, built not on fear or obligation, but on shared experiences, trust, and a growing friendship. One afternoon, as they worked together in the fields, Ayana noticed Daniel pausing to look at the horizon. "What are you thinking about?" she asked. Daniel shrugged. "Just thinking about how much has changed in a short time. You came here frightened and alone, and now it feels like you belong here in some way. That is a strange feeling for me, but a good one. Yana smiled softly. I feel the same way. At first I was afraid of being here, of not knowing what to do or where to go. But now I feel like this place could be home, and I feel like I could trust someone again. Their words hung in the air, full of meaning and unspoken emotion. Both knew that there were challenges ahead, dangers from the outside world, cultural differences, and the uncertainties of life in a remote place. But for now, they allowed themselves to enjoy the comfort of companionship and mutual respect. One evening, a sudden storm rolled in. Dark clouds covered the sky, and rain began to pour heavily, turning the dirt paths to mud. The wind howled through the trees, and Daniel realized that the livestock could be in danger if they were not secured quickly. He and Ayana worked together tirelessly, moving the animals to sheltered areas and reinforcing the fences. The storm was fierce, but they faced it as a team. By the time the rain stopped, both were soaked and exhausted. They sat together near the fire, drying off and warming themselves. Ayana looked at Daniel, her expression a mixture of admiration and gratitude. I never knew life could be so hard, but also so full of learning, she said. Daniel nodded. Life is never easy, Ayana. But it is the hard moments, the challenges we face, that show us what we are capable of. You have shown incredible strength. I am proud of you. Yana felt a warmth in her heart she had not felt in a long time. For the first time since fleeing her home, she felt a sense of safety, trust, and even belonging. She realized that Daniel was not just a protector, he was a companion, someone who respected her and valued her as a person. As the fire crackled and the night settled over the ranch, they sat quietly together, each lost in thought. The storm had passed, leaving a calm that felt almost magical. They both understood that life would continue to bring challenges, but they had proven to themselves that together they could face anything. That night, Ayana lay down on the blanket near the fireplace, feeling tired but safe. She thought about the journey that had brought her here, from fear and desperation on the railroad tracks to trust and friendship on the ranch. She knew that her life was changing in ways she could not yet fully understand, but for the first time, she allowed herself to hope for the future. Daniel watched her for a moment before heading to his own bed. He thought about the strength, courage, and wisdom that Ayana had shown. He knew that their lives were intertwined now, and that this bond, formed in a moment of fear and solidified through days of shared effort, was something rare and precious. As he drifted to sleep, Daniel felt a quiet determination. He would protect her, guide her, and ensure that she could find safety and peace on his ranch. And in return, he knew that he would learn from her, grow with her, and perhaps discover a connection that went beyond mere friendship. The ranch was quiet once more, the fire slowly dying down, and the wind softly rustling the trees. Outside, the stars began to twinkle in the clear night sky, silent witnesses to the beginnings of a story that neither Daniel nor Ayana could have imagined. A story of courage, trust, and the fragile, beautiful beginnings of something extraordinary. Life on the ranch had settled into a steady rhythm, but Daniel and Ayana both knew that peace was fragile. The weeks of calm and routine had allowed them to grow closer, learning from one another and sharing the quiet joys of daily life. Yet, the outside world had not forgotten about them, and the challenges that lay ahead were beginning to stir. One morning, as the sun peeked over the horizon, Daniel noticed smoke rising in the distance. His heart tightened. The neighboring ranches were dry at this time of year, and any spark could quickly turn into a dangerous fire. Without hesitation, he called Ayana over. "We need to move fast," he said. "The fire could spread toward the pastures and the livestock." Ayana nodded, her expression serious. Fear was there, but it was tempered by determination. She had faced danger before, and now, with Daniel by her side, she felt capable of helping prevent disaster. Together, they raced across the fields, alerting neighboring ranchers along the way. They worked tirelessly, digging trenches and creating barriers to slow the fire's advance. The sun climbed higher, and the heat from both the fire and the day pressed down on them, but neither of them faltered. As they fought to protect the land, Daniel realized how much Ayanna had changed since the day he first saved her. The desperation and fear that had once consumed her were now replaced with courage and resourcefulness. She gave instructions calmly, helped move supplies efficiently, and even reassured frightened animals with a gentle touch. He watched her and felt a deep sense of respect. She had grown into someone who could face danger without hesitation, a true partner in every sense of the word. By mid-afternoon, the fire was finally under control, thanks to their efforts and the help of other ranchers. Both Daniel and Ayanna were exhausted, covered in soot and sweat, but there was a shared sense of relief. They had saved the livestock, the fences, and much of the land. For a moment they allowed themselves to breathe, sitting together on the porch and watching the smoke drift away into the distance. "That was intense," Ayanna said softly, her voice still trembling slightly. "I've never seen a fire like that before." Daniel nodded, rubbing his hands over his face. "It's dangerous work, but you handled it better than I could have imagined. You were incredible today." Ayanna's eyes met his, and for the first time there was a hint of something more than gratitude, a quiet recognition of trust, admiration, and connection. She felt a warmth in her heart she had not known before, a feeling that perhaps she was not just surviving, but beginning to live fully. As the days passed, they returned to their usual routines, but new challenges began to emerge. Rumors of a Comanche woman living on Daniel's ranch had spread farther than he expected. Some neighbors were curious, others suspicious, and a few were openly critical. Daniel had to deal with questions, whispers, and the occasional judgmental stare when he went to town. Each time he defended Ayanna with calm authority, emphasizing her courage, her work on the ranch, and her right to safety. Ayanna felt the tension, too. She had grown more confident in her daily tasks, but the judgment of strangers reminded her of the world she had fled. Some days she would stay close to the house, avoiding the risk of unwanted attention. Other days, she ventured out with Daniel, learning how to interact with the world beyond the ranch without fear. Each encounter was a lesson in patience, diplomacy, and courage. One afternoon, a particularly aggressive neighbor, Mr. Harlan, rode to the ranch, his face dark with suspicion. "Daniel," he said, dismounting roughly, "I don't understand why you have her here. Do you even know what kind of trouble this could bring?" Daniel stood tall, unwavering. "Ayanna is safe here. She is working, learning, and contributing to the ranch. She has faced danger before and deserves the chance to live without fear. I will not allow anyone to make her feel unwelcome here, Mr." Harlan scoffed but did not press further. He left with a warning, and Daniel turned to Ayanna, who had been watching quietly. "Don't worry," he said gently. "You are safe here. People will talk, but we will face it together." Ayanna felt a surge of gratitude. Daniel's words, his courage, and his unwavering support reminded her why she had begun to trust him so deeply. She realized that life on the ranch was not just about work or survival. It was about building bonds that could withstand fear, judgment, and the unknown. Despite the challenges from outside, a quiet happiness began to grow between them. They shared small moments of joy, laughing while riding horses across open fields, watching sunsets together, or sharing stories by the fire at night. These moments were precious, a reminder that life could be beautiful even amid uncertainty. But life on the ranch was not always peaceful. One day, a stray calf wandered too close to the riverbank and became trapped in the mud. Daniel and Ayanna rushed to save it. The mud was deep, and the river current strong, making the rescue dangerous. Ayanna, recalling her lessons and her past experiences of facing danger, took the lead, carefully guiding the calf towards safer ground while Daniel offered support. Together they pulled the calf free, wet, tired, and muddy, but triumphant. "That could have gone very badly," Daniel said, breathing heavily. "But you stayed calm and did exactly the right thing. I'm proud of you." Yana smiled, though she was exhausted. "I have learned from you," she said softly, "and from what I've been through before. Life has taught me how to stay focused when it matters most." Their shared experiences created a bond stronger than either had anticipated. Trust, respect, and admiration were growing alongside their friendship. Daniel began to realize that his feelings for Ayana were more than simple concern or responsibility. He admired her courage, intelligence, and resilience, and he felt a deep connection he could not ignore. Ayana, in turn, found herself drawn to Daniel's kindness, steadiness, and protective nature. She felt safe with him in a way she had never felt before, and that trust was forming the foundation of a deeper emotional connection. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, Ayana approached Daniel with a thoughtful expression. "Daniel," she began hesitantly, "I have been thinking about my future, about what I want and where I belong." Daniel looked at her attentively, sensing the seriousness in her voice. "Go on," he said softly. I want to stay here," she said. "I want to learn, to work, and to be part of this life. You saved my life once, and since then I have learned so much from you. I trust you, and I want to be here, not just as someone who was rescued, but as someone who belongs." Daniel felt a swell of emotion. He realized that Ayana's words reflected not just gratitude, but choice. She was choosing to stay, to trust him, and to build a life together in this new world. It was a turning point, a moment that marked the transition from survival to partnership. Their bond was tested once more when a small herd of wild cattle wandered onto the ranch, threatening to damage crops and fences. Daniel and Ayana worked tirelessly to guide the animals back to the open plains, coordinating their movements with precision and care. The task was exhausting, but it strengthened their teamwork and deepened their trust in one another. As night fell, they sat together by the fire, sharing a simple meal. The events of the day, the challenges they had faced, and the victories they had earned created a quiet sense of fulfillment. Yana looked at Daniel, her eyes reflecting the firelight and a mixture of gratitude, admiration, and affection. "Life here is different from what I expected," she said softly. "I thought I would always be running, always afraid, but now I feel like I have a place, a home, and you have given me that." Daniel nodded, his heart full. "You have given me a lot too, Yana. You've shown me courage, resilience, and the value of trust. I am proud of you, and I am grateful to have you here." In that moment, both understood that their relationship had grown beyond simple gratitude or survival. They had faced danger, overcome challenges, and built a foundation of trust and mutual respect. The ranch had become more than just land and livestock. It had become a place of connection, understanding, and the beginnings of love. As they prepared for bed, Daniel and Ayana both felt a quiet sense of anticipation. Life on the ranch would continue to bring challenges, both from the outside world and from the unpredictability of nature. But together, they knew they could face anything. The bond formed through shared hardship, courage, and trust would guide them through the days to come. The night was calm, the stars bright overhead, and the firelight casting a warm glow across the ranch. Outside, the land was quiet, yet full of life, as if it too recognized the beginning of something extraordinary. Daniel and Ayana lay down to rest, each carrying the knowledge that they had not only survived the trials of the day, but had grown stronger and closer because of them. And in that quiet night, the ranch was not just a home, but a symbol of resilience, trust, and the promise of a future built together. A future neither Daniel nor Ayana could have imagined on that fateful day by the railroad tracks. The weeks had turned into months, and life on. The ranch had changed for both Daniel and Ayana. The routines of daily work, the shared challenges, and the quiet victories had created a bond between them that went beyond friendship or gratitude. They had faced dangers together, learned from one another, and discovered strength in places they hadn't known existed. Their relationship had grown, rooted in trust, respect, and a deep understanding of each other's hearts. One morning, Daniel woke early, as was his habit, to check on the animals before the heat of the day set in. He noticed Ayana quietly gathering eggs from the chicken coop, her movements confident and steady. She had grown so much since the day he found her on the railroad tracks, braver, stronger, and more at peace. Daniel felt a swell of pride and affection. She was no longer just a young woman he had rescued. She had become his partner, someone whose courage and wisdom he deeply admired. Yana noticed Daniel watching her and smiled, a warmth in her eyes that made his chest tighten. "Good morning," she said softly. "Good morning," Daniel replied. "The animals are all doing well. You've been doing an excellent job with the chores lately." Yana shrugged lightly, though a small smile tugged at her lips. "I've learned from the best," she said, "and I've had a good teacher." Daniel chuckled, shaking his head. "You don't give yourself enough credit. You've grown so much, Ayana. I'm proud of you." Their morning passed with the usual routines, feeding cattle, checking fences, and preparing the fields for planting. The rhythm of the work was comforting, a reminder that life, even with its challenges, could also be simple and meaningful. As they paused for a break, sitting under the shade of a large oak tree, Ayana spoke quietly. "Daniel, have you ever thought about the future?" she asked, looking at him with curiosity. Daniel considered her question carefully. "I have," he said. "I've thought about the ranch, the animals, and the life I want to live, but more recently I've been thinking about you. About what this life could be like if we face it together." Jana's heart skipped a beat. She had felt the growing connection between them, but hearing his words confirmed what she had been hoping for, something deeper than companionship, a bond that could become love. She reached out, touching his hand gently. "I feel the same way," she said softly. "I want to face the future with you, not just as someone you saved, but as someone who belongs here with you." Daniel squeezed her hand, a mixture of relief and joy in his eyes. "Then we will face it together," he said. "Whatever comes, we will do it side by side." The following weeks brought more challenges, testing their bond and resilience. A sudden illness swept through the livestock, requiring long hours of care and treatment. Daniel and Ayana worked tirelessly, nursing the animals back to health, learning to administer medicine and observe symptoms. Ayana's knowledge of plants and natural remedies proved invaluable, and Daniel marveled at how her wisdom complemented his experience with the ranch. Together, they faced each obstacle with patience, determination, and a shared sense of purpose. Their cooperation extended beyond work. They began to talk more about their dreams, their hopes, and the lives they wanted to build together. Yana spoke of her desire to honor her heritage while embracing the life she was building on the ranch. Daniel shared his vision of expanding the ranch, creating a home that could sustain both of them and perhaps, one day, others who needed a safe place. As spring arrived, the ranch transformed. Green shoots appeared in the fields, flowers bloomed along the fences, and the animals thrived under their care. The land, once merely a place of work, had become a symbol of growth, renewal, and hope. Daniel and Ayana found themselves walking through the fields in the cool mornings, talking, laughing, and enjoying the quiet moments together. One afternoon, as the sun began to set, painting the sky in brilliant oranges and purples, Daniel took Ayana to the top of the hills overlooking the ranch. He had chosen this spot for its beauty, its quiet, and for the memories it held of the first day they had worked together here. "Yana," he began, his voice steady but filled with emotion, "these months have changed both of our lives. You came here in fear and desperation, and now I see you as someone brave, strong, and kind. Someone I respect and admire more than I can say." Ayana's eyes glistened with emotion, the wind gently moving her hair. "Daniel, you have given me so much. Safety, trust, friendship, and a place where I belong. I never imagined I could feel this way again." Daniel knelt before her, holding her hands. "I don't want to imagine my life without you, Yana. I want us to build a future together. Will you marry me?" Yana gasped, tears forming in her eyes. She had never expected such a proposal, yet she felt no fear, only certainty. "Yes," she whispered, her voice trembling with happiness. "Yes, I will marry you." The moment was quiet but filled with joy, the world around them seeming to pause in recognition of their love. They embraced, knowing that their lives, once separate and full of uncertainty, had now become intertwined in a bond forged through courage, trust, and shared experiences. The days that followed were filled with preparations for a small, meaningful celebration. Daniel and Ayana chose to honor both their backgrounds, blending traditions and creating a ceremony that reflected their journey. Neighbors who had once been skeptical now came to witness the union, offering support and congratulations. The ranch, which had once been just a place of work, now became a home of love, unity, and community. Even in the midst of celebration, life on the ranch continued. There were still animals to care for, fences to repair, and fields to tend. But Daniel and Ayana faced these tasks together, each day deepening their bond. Their love was not a fairy tale. It was built on the foundations of trust, respect, and shared effort. Every obstacle they overcame, every challenge they met, strengthened their connection and reminded them of the courage and resilience that had brought them together. As months turned into years, their life on the ranch flourished. They welcomed new animals, expanded their fields, and continued to learn from one another. Daniel admired Ayana's wisdom, her patience, and her ability to see solutions where he saw problems. Ayana cherished Daniel's steadiness, his kindness, and his unwavering support. Together, they built not only a home but a life filled with purpose, joy, and mutual respect. One evening, as they sat together on the porch watching the sun dip below the horizon, Ayana rested her head on Daniel's shoulder. "I never imagined life could be like this," she said softly. "From the tracks to here, it feels like a dream." Daniel held her close, feeling the warmth of her presence. "It may have started with a moment of fear, but everything that followed has been real. We have built this life together, and it is stronger than any fear we faced." They watched the stars appear one by one in the night sky, the ranch quiet and peaceful around them. Daniel thought about the journey they had taken, from a life-threatening moment on the tracks to a partnership built on trust, courage, and love. Ayana's life had been saved that day, but in truth, both of them had been changed forever. The fear, the challenges, and the choices they had made had led to something extraordinary, a bond that would endure. As the night deepened, they spoke quietly of dreams for the future. They talked of expanding the ranch, helping others who were in need, and creating a legacy built on kindness, resilience, and understanding. Each word, each promise was a reaffirmation of the life they were building together, a life filled with hope, courage, and love. Yana knew that she had found more than safety on the ranch. She had found a home, a partner, and a life that allowed her to grow, to love, and to heal from the past. Daniel knew that he had found someone who completed his life, who brought wisdom, courage, and joy into every day. Together, they had turned a moment of fear into a lifetime of hope and happiness. As they finally prepared to rest, side by side, the ranch silent around them except for the gentle sounds of animals settling in for the night, they both felt a quiet certainty. Life would continue to bring challenges, but together, they could face anything. The bond forged on the railroad tracks, strengthened by days of shared labor, courage, and trust, had grown into something unbreakable, a true partnership, a love built on respect, and a life worth living fully. The night sky stretched endlessly above them, stars shining like tiny beacons of hope. And as Daniel and Ayana closed their eyes, they knew that whatever the future held, they would face it together. Their journey had begun with a single act of bravery, and it had blossomed into a life filled with love, trust, and endless possibilities. In the quiet of the ranch, surrounded by the land they had nurtured and the animals they had cared for, Daniel and Ayana's story reached its beginning of forever, a story of courage, survival, and the extraordinary power of human connection.